crafty friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we are making a project for the Cocoa Vanilla design team, and there was no real assignment this week or any theme for this project, so I thought it'd be fun to play with a few of my favorite things, which is a huge cut file and some mixed media. So you see, that's the cut file I'm using. I actually kept the backing that the cut file that I cut it out from because I used it to orient myself a few times on this layout, and I'm actually using not white cardstock as the background. Like, I'm using a bit of pattern paper. Now, it does feel like cheating because the pattern paper that I'm using is white and it is text-based, but I'm slowly graduating to using pattern paper as a background, and it feels really good to be stretching my creative wings. So what I'm doing is using a brayer to apply a thin layer of gesso to the background. Now, you can apply gesso in a bunch of ways. You can apply gesso with a paintbrush, or I've sometimes used the card technique, but I found that if I want a really thin and really even application, a brayer is the way to go when applying gesso. And I'm just using some Liquitex Basics white gesso to toughen out my paper, because this cardstock is not designed for mixed media, you guys. Like, this cardstock will not hold up to any sort of mixed media without gesso. And you'll see that even with all the gesso I put on the background, it really buckled and warped, and I ended up having to actually put this page underneath a heavy 12 by 12 album for almost 3 hours before I could finish the layout, because it warped so much from all the water I put on it. So that's the beauty of using gesso on a background. If you want to do mixed media, highly recommend that you have, if you do any sort of like water-based media to your background pages, highly recommend you have some sort of gesso in your stash. I use clear gesso and white. This time I chose to go for white because I kind of wanted to mute out the background a little bit since I had all that text print. So the white served two purposes. It was to protect and toughen my paper, and also to mute out some of the text. So now I'm adding my Distress Oxides. Nothing revolutionary. You guys have seen me do this 100 times before. I'm just using a bit of packaging and the ink smushing technique because the collection I'm using is unforgettable. And I went ahead and picked some Distress Oxide colors that I thought would go really well with the Unforgettable collection. So I started with Worn Lipstick. That's that pink you saw me applying. And I decided to do, I don't know if I could consider this a rainbow because there are a few colors missing, but it's pretty close to rainbow order. So I started with the pink. This orange is called Ripe Persimmon, and it is my favorite orange Distress Oxide. Like, I've had Spice Marmalade and a bunch of other oranges in my stash forever. This one is my favorite. Now you see I've moved to blues, and I had to make sure that I put a little bit more pink down on top of that orange, because if I had put that blue right on top of the orange, blue and orange are complementary colors, and I was really worried that I was going to get some sort of a muddy brown thing. So after applying that orange, I went ahead and applied a little bit more pink to protect that edge, kind of. And now I added, so 2 shades of blue. I used Broken China, which was the lighter blue. And then I added Peacock Feathers, which was the more teal turquoise color. And then finally, I'm going to add a tiny bit of purple. And the purple I'm using is shaded Lilac. I decided to use a bit more pastel colors that wouldn't be like super saturated, because I didn't want my background to just become a wash of color. Like, I wanted you to see the individual colors, but I still wanted the white paper to show through, if that makes any sense. So now there's my background, and I think it, like, look at how pretty that is with the butterflies underneath it. I think it came out really, really well. And again, I use colors straight from the Unforgettable line. That's what helped me pick my color scheme. And then I just took a little bit of black soot, applied it straight to my craft mat, added some water to kind of thin it out and make watercolor, and then I used it to add some black splatter to the background. Now, it took me a while to get this together. I was using the wrong paintbrush first. The paintbrush I was using was too small, and then I had to switch to a bigger oval paintbrush, and then some of the splatters were a bit too big, but you kind of see the effect. What I wish I had done was dry it immediately before some of the splatters had time to smudge, because you'll see in the final layout that some of the splatters are a little bit bigger than I would have liked, but I think it all worked out in the end. And then after this, I hit it with my heat tool again. And after hitting it with my heat tool, it had curled in on itself, and it was so badly warped that I couldn't do anything. But I tried to go with it anyway. So I went ahead and backed my cut file with the hearts. not hearts, butterflies. Now, I cheated when I did this because I am lazy and I do not like hand cutting. I know I've said this before, but fussy cutting is not my thing. I know plenty of people that will fussy cut for days and they do really cool things with a pair of sharp scissors. That is not for me. So I will teach you a tiny trick when it comes to cut files like this. So if you have a cut file that is a repeated shape like these butterflies, it's just the same butterfly over and over. In Silhouette Studio, if you release the compound path for the cut file, you can actually isolate the inner portion of the cut file, like just because the butterfly is just two layers. It's the outside and then it's the inside elements that give you that frame. If you take the inside element and you apply an offset to it and repeat it, that gives you the exact shape that will fill your cut file. So I just went ahead, took the inside of that butterfly, offset it, repeat it 20 times, and then I cut it on 2 different 12 by 12 papers because 12 by 12 papers are double-sided. So by cutting it on 2 papers, it gives me 4 patterns. And I actually ended up only using 3 patterns because I didn't use the backside of that fun floral. I didn't want to add that gray. I wanted to keep it relatively colorful. But I ended up with some pinks and some oranges. I had that fun floral, and I think when you see, like, guys, how beautiful is that? Like, I think it came out so nicely. And then after I backed all my flowers, I keep saying flowers because I'm always working with flowers. After I backed all my cutterflies. Wow, you guys, we are going on an adventure today. After I backed all my butterflies, I realized that I made a mistake. So what I should have done, this is what I get for like getting ahead of myself. What I should have done was make sure that the orientation of the butterflies matched the orientation of the layout. So you see, now that I'm trying to put it back on the page, I realized that I made a little bit of a mistake when it came to the orientation of the butterflies. They're actually supposed to be going from right to left instead of left to right. Now, when I had put the paper down on my mat, I put the paper down backwards. So I realized that it's supposed to be the other way. You'll see in like 2 seconds that I realized that it's supposed to be the other way. So I ended up having to cut my cut file up into individual pieces to make it work. So it doesn't look exactly like how it looks in the original design, but I think it still works out pretty well because, again, all I did was take a little bit of snippies and separate. So you see, that's the way it was supposed to go. So my bottom piece makes sense, but my top piece, when I backed it on the opposite side. Again, that was an easy fix, but I just left this in to show you that sometimes you have these great ideas and they don't always work out the way they're supposed to. But you see, I eventually get it to work. I stick all my butterflies down. Everything looks really good, even though, again, it's not the same way that Also, this is a Paige Evans cut file. I probably should have said this. This is a cut file from Paige Evans that I purchased in the Silhouette store. I love butterflies and flowers and hearts. Those are like my favorite shapes to work with. And see, now we have the photo on the layout. So this is after it sat under a book for like 3 or 4 hours to kind of flatten it out because it had curled in on itself and I literally could not stick a single thing to it. Also, I use my Scotch Quick Dry Wet Glue. It is my favorite glue when gluing anything down to mixed media, you guys. If you're doing any sort of mixed media work with gesso or anything like that, that glue is the glue I recommend the most for making sure that things stick down the way they're supposed to. So the photo I'm scrapping is a photo of my I don't even know what to call her. I call her my niece half the time. It's my best friend's daughter, Charlie. Over the summer, I was walking and I ran into Inca and Charlie, and they were going to the zoo, and it was the zoo that I went to as a baby all the time. I talked about it in December Daily. It's the Prospect Park Zoo in Brooklyn. Joshua and I now call it the baby zoo because it is so small, and you can do the entire zoo in like 20 minutes as an adult. But when you're a child and you get to go and watch the animals and there's a petting zoo and everything, it was great. So I just happened to walk into them, and with life being what it is, she told me that they were going to the zoo, and I was like, of course I'm going to the zoo with you guys. And so we just ended up having a random unplanned day where we got to go to the zoo and hang out with Charlie and Inca, and it was great. And so one of the things they have at the zoo is it's like a jumping thing. So there's like a little picture and you measure how far you can jump, and then it tells you what animal you're the closest to. And so I got this perfect picture of Charlie in motion, like jumping. She only has like one leg down on the ground. She's like leaping, and it's such a great shot, and I thought it'd be perfect for this layout. Also, the colors in the picture match the colors in the Unforgettable collection perfectly. She's wearing pink and gray, and there's teal in the background. I love the word serendipity. It was serendipitous. So now I am just working on embellishing my photo of Charlie. Now, if you've watched me scrapbook before, you know that I have a thing for layers. However many layers I can fit on a layout at a time is what I'm going with. And so I'm literally just building layer on top of layer on top of layer. I laid out all the die cuts from the Unforgettable collection on my desk, and I'm just grabbing and stacking things. I'm putting florals down, I'm putting labels down, I'm putting tags down, I'm putting down any shape that I think might work. And because it's all in the same collection, like all the colors match, so I don't even have to think about whether the colors match or not. I'm just going with shapes and what feels good. And again, I like to put things at different heights. So there's things behind the photo, things behind a photo layer, things behind all the photo matte layers. And I just keep building and building and building. You saw I cut those circle frames in half because Tashi does not waste product. And if only half of it is going to be showing behind the layout, then why not cut it and save it a little bit? So I ended up building my entire photo cluster just on the photo, and then I glued it together and glued it directly on the paper. And the reason I did that was because I had mixed media on the background, and I knew that gluing and everything else was just going to be a little bit challenging. So it was just easier to build everything off the layout and stick it down. So I added some flowers, I added some butterflies to repeat the layers in my cut file. I added a tag that says every day. I added a camera. I'm literally just building embellishments and building photo clusters. And then because I have this diagonal feel in the top left corner, I created another cluster using the same things. Some flowers, some butterflies. That pink piece says Lifetime Pass. And then eventually I go in and I add some white stickers from the sticker accessory sheet, and they say amazing and unforgettable you. And then I went in and added some more texture using some of those fun bows that came in the dimensional pack, and I added a bit of flair that just says snap photos. Finally, for my title, I just used the foam stickers that came with the Unforgettable collection, and my title is Hello You, and I add a few more foam stickers and some enamel dots, and that completes the layout, you guys. This whole thing probably took a half hour from start to finish. It was not anything technically difficult. The cutting machine did all the work for me, and then I just got to play with some distress oxides and pretty papers. So I hope you enjoyed this layout, you guys. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me. Please give me a like, comment, and subscribe if you are so inclined, and if you enjoyed this page. And please let me know in the comments what you thought of this layout and of this packaging technique. It is my favorite way to add color to the background, especially with such neutral papers like this white background and that white butterfly cutout. I think it all worked out really well. And again, enamel dots for me are just like the sprinkles and the icing on the cake. So we sprinkled them around like confetti, and we call that layout done. Oh, and the other thing I did was add a tiny little bit of foam behind my flare button just so it popped up a little bit. But that completes the layout, you guys. So again, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Until next time, keep your crafty friends and have the very best day, and I will see you around. Bye!